And now we're back. As he made his way over, he glimpsed the living room, sunlit and still, the air choked with dust motes. In the corner was a desk bearing up a computer, and oh, I'm sorry. And a chaotic mess of paperwork. Bills, sketches, news clippings. Miss Shimizu's, he guessed. If she was her own boss, then she clearly hadn't been a very good employee lately. The door to Shimizu's bedroom was partly ajar. He swung it open and slipped inside like a shadow. All of the crime scenes Akechi investigated in the past had been arranged for him in advance, but he still wasn't naive enough to expect anything particularly dramatic. Still, for the first few seconds upon coming in, he was completely nonplussed. He almost thought he was back in his old bedroom again. Clean white walls, well-made bed, small TV in the corner, a bookshelf containing some scattered school rubrics and what, at a glance, he determined to be workbooks, unless pre-calculus had somehow become popular reading among teenagers recently. Some dusty DVDs and a few manga volumes that looked bookstore fresh. Their presence on the shelf seemed obligatory, a grudging acknowledgement that someone actually lived here. Nothing under the desk or the bed. Nothing under the pillow. He checked the closet and the dresser and found only hung and folded clothes and his school bag curled up like a discarded snakeskin in the corner. Though at the back of the closet's top shelf, his questing hand did uncover a bag of stale cookies that his parents had probably missed. Maybe they had cleaned the place out after Shimizu had lost consciousness, but he didn't see any rings or discolorations that would mark something recently discovered. Plan B, then. Shimizu's laptop was on the desk, its charge cable still in the outlet. Akechi flipped it open, turned it on, and withdrew Futaba's little party favor from his jacket pocket. This flash drive was an upgraded version of the one Makoto had used on Sai's computer last year. It cracked passwords and hoovered out a hard drive's entire contents in less than half the time. It finished downloading barely 10 seconds after Akechi plugged it in, and then he withdrew it and switched the laptop off again. When he returned to the kitchen, Miss Shimizu was setting 2 mugs on the table. "Do you take cream and sugar?" she asked. The reasonable thing to do would be to make his apologies, say his goodbyes, and leave. He'd gotten what precious little he was able to find, and the woman was clearly grieving, but also far more intelligent than she looked. But when she looked at him from across that expanse of bare hardwood and tile, the 2 mugs steaming at her sides, he found himself saying, "Yes, please. 2 sugars." She nodded and mixed it in. He pulled up a chair, maintaining his modulated smile. "It's just my throat. It has nothing to do with, C19. I've done a COVID test weeks ago on myself, and it came out negative, so I don't have the virus." Then again, the fact that I already have my 2 COVID jabs before summer vacation is also a good factor as to why I don't have it. "Find anything worth mentioning?" She attempted to keep her tone light. The coffee mugs were cheap things, printed with a gaudy and grinning Big Bang Burger logo. "Big Bang Burger! Big Bang Burger! Big Bang Burger!" I really shouldn't be joking around. This is a serious chapter after all, but I couldn't resist. Sorry. "Nothing extraordinary. Though I suspect you knew that already. He's your son, after all." "Of course." She stirred in the sugar, slid his mug over, and sat down in the chair opposite. So no one really does know if the victims will wake up again, or why they got sick in the first place. When we find something, I'll make sure to inform you. She shook her head. You don't have to go to the trouble. It's kind of comforting, actually. I couldn't stop wondering if there was something I'd missed in the days leading up to it. Something I could have done to help him. You have to stay strong for him, Miss Shimizu. Gentle. Soothing. This was when he was at his best. People were so often too wrapped up in themselves to pay attention to him. As long as he spoke the right cliches and the right tone of voice, then he could get away with murder. Occasionally, he had. He held his coffee mug in his gloved hands and let her self-pity carry on. I'm gonna get a drink of water after this. I'll be going out for a walk, so I'll buy myself a bottle of water. Sticking to platitudes because you don't know what else to say, His face betrayed nothing, but he squeezed the mug tight. She looked up from her mug, head tilted slightly, her bangs parting to reveal one half-lidded eye. That glare was uncomfortably reminiscent of her son's, that vagrant phantom stalking the decaying alleys of the cognitive world. And the way her hair hung over her eyes reminded him of something else. Something he didn't want to recall. You seem surprised, she said. But he didn't. He was certain he didn't. I'm aware of how I look, you know. This face isn't exactly cabaret club material. It wasn't much better when I was young. I had to learn to use my brain instead. He couldn't say anything, so he took a small sip of the coffee. It tasted like noise. It's all right. Sorry for putting you on the spot like that. And I'm sorry for how I acted earlier. Miss Shimizu went on. It's good to know that at least someone's trying to fix all this. But to put it on the shoulders of someone like you... To be honest, I never liked this child detective business. Shoving you in front of cameras and into crime scenes. To me, it always felt like someone was just using you as a prop. She was much too good at this. Well, it was still quite a setup compared to how I was living before. I don't know if you saw any of my biopics. Oh, I saw. It was very inspirational. But they're not planning to keep you like this forever, are they? She raised her mug again and then stopped. That one eye narrowed. Wait, are they even letting you attend school? The tabloids wouldn't have gotten so crazy if you'd just gone back to your routine. His grip tightened further. This is exactly why he should have left. The whole charismatic detective business had been a shallow ruse. He'd lived his glamorous life on Shido's dime, kept afloat by a steady stream of dark money from the conspiracy. With that gone, his cover story was a hollow shell that had already been rotting for a year. Stupid. Stupid. Well, he coughed. I'm being privately tutored. On the department's funding, of course. And, you might have noticed that my old apartment was repossessed as well. Not as much money in my account without the TV spots. His laugh was going wrong. It was much too brittle. I've been giving lodgings elsewhere, of course. The department pays my rent and a small stipend in exchange for my continued services. They've been very kind. And what happens if they decide to let you go? That quiet outrage was creeping back into her words. You get shunted back to the foster system? I'm a bit too old for that now. The streets, then. Even worse. She shook her head again, harder. I apologize, but that's not employment. That's slavery. Want emancipation? You must have someone, right? I know about your family, but after all this time, surely there's someone who'd take you in. No one would miss him. No one would have given a shit. It's really quite all right, Miss Shimizu. He tried to stay jovial. He tried to add a sharp and insistent undertone, but it was all going wrong. His voice wavered, threatening to crack. The hole was there again. His toes hung over the edge. He was losing his balance. I'm capable of handling things myself. They'll keep me around until that is to say, I'll be fine so long as I'm useful to them. Now, I'm sorry, but I really should get going. He was all set to stand up and walk off, but he couldn't seem to release that tacky coffee mug. He felt anchored to it. But that indignant ferocity left Miss Shimizu. Her shoulders drooped, her mouth sagged. Yes, of course. Listen to me, making a fool of myself. She tried to smile, hair hanging over her eyes. You really do look exhausted, though. Would you at least like something to eat? That mildewed apartment. That yellowed carpet. The lunchtime long past. The way the ceiling fan creaked as she hung there, hair veiling her face. Akechi's palms burned hot. He cried out and recoiled from the table, his palms splayed out and dripping brown. The coffee mug sat in a widening puddle. He'd clutched it hard enough to crack the ceramic. Oh no, no! He looked back and forth for a towel, quaking all over. I'm sorry, don't know what came over me. But Miss Shimizu had already grabbed a handful of napkins and tossed the ruined mug in the sink. It's fine. Are your hands all right? Don't worry about me. The mug, I can pay for it. I have some cash. Don't be ridiculous. My husband contracts with Okumura Foods. I can give him a call and he'll bring me a whole box of the things. She wiped up the last of the liquid and tossed the napkins in the trash. Akechi saw her face enter his vision like a passing moon, and then gentle hands were on his shoulders. Sit. Breathe. He obeyed. He tried to mold his face into something professional, but his expert touch had failed him. The clay of himself fell apart in his hands. Miss Shimizu stared down at him, long and hard. She appeared to come to a conclusion. Stay here, she said, and turned to the front door. I'll be back soon. What? Where are you going? The police station. I'm going to find your supervisor and make them wish they'd never been born. He almost fainted on the spot. This was falling apart worse than he'd ever thought possible. Miss Shimizu, that is really not necessary. I've just been a little overworked lately. Listen to me. She spun on him, eyes fully displayed and burning bright. For 3 months, I've been rotting away in this apartment with my son locked up in a damn hospital room and my husband burying himself alive in his office. I sat at that table and replayed every minute I spent with Seki, trying to find out where it started to go wrong. And this is wrong. She jabbed a finger at him. The world is miserable enough already. I will not stand by and let the police run a high schooler into a nervous breakdown just because he made a mistake on a job that they should have been doing themselves in the first place. I have nothing but time on my hands. I'm going to give them hell. Miss Shimizu, don't. I promise you'll be fine. She turned away. And you're staying here for as long as necessary. God, you can take Seki's room if you really need. Please don't! His voice splintered and his chair scraped as he leapt up, the woman becoming 2 women, and then 3 as his eyes began to water. She turned back, face suddenly wary. He could feel it. The situation was unsalvageable now. No way of coming back from that outburst. Can't do this anymore. He laughed weakly and fell back into his seat. Unbelievable. I can't even manage this. Mr. Akechi. Goro. She crept up to him. Am I missing something? I lied to you. He peeled off his sodden gloves and dropped them on the table. Underneath, his hands were clammy and pale. He hung his head. He couldn't look at her. I don't understand, Miss Shimizu said. There is no investigation. I'm no longer with the police. I haven't been affiliated with them since my disappearance. He'd been hanging from a ledge for so long that it was almost a relief to let go. I am looking into paranoia syndrome. There are some associates of mine who are looking for a solution to the whole crisis. They're sheltering me while I assist them, but not for much longer. He raised his head. Miss Shimizu, the truth is that I'm in some very serious trouble. I can't tell you the details. But the day the police learn of my presence will probably be my last day as a free man. I was going to turn myself in soon. But first, for those people, I just wanted to do something right for a change. She still looked bewildered. I know you're angry. This deception was unacceptable. But please, just give me a few hours before you report me. Let me tell them what I've learned. I have to do that at least. The coffee's charred reek hung in the air. The sink dripped. Outside, the sun approached the horizon, its light turning rusted. Can you help him? Miss Shimizu asked. He blinked. Excuse me? My son, can you and these people, whoever they are, help Seki? For a while, he didn't know what else to say. The only truths left to him were lethal ones. That Seki Shimizu was some kind of malevolent revenant trawling the seas of the unconscious for people to torment. That by any realistic measure, he was probably the most dangerous terrorist the world had ever seen. That Akechi himself still had no idea what had caused the boy's mind to become so warped, or why. He struggled to find the words. We'll wake him up, he said at last. We'll get him out of there. She still didn't move. He was sure she was going to take out her phone and dial the police. Then she said, You can still stay here if you want. He couldn't take much more of this. You don't even know me. His voice had gone rasping, gossamer thin. I know that you reached out to us when no one else would. That's enough. It might sound selfish, but it's the truth. She stepped forward. And as for whatever crime you committed, I doubt it's as bad as you're making it out to be. You're still a child. Children are allowed to make mistakes. It's adults who should know better. If only you knew, he thought, about me or your son. She took another step, and for a horrible moment he thought that she would embrace him. But instead, she took out her phone. "Before you leave, could we exchange numbers? Just in case." He didn't resist. He gave her his number, took down her own. Then he made a feeble goodbye and gathered up his gloves and his briefcase, limping to the door. "Goro?" He looked over his shoulder. Miss Shimizu stood in the rusted twilight of the kitchen like an abandoned totem, face solemn, hands folded at her waist. The dark coffee stain on the table behind her was plain to see. She bowed deep. "Thank you," she said, "for confiding in me." The crisp, cold air burned his throat as he staggered outside and rustled Ryuji's hoodie back on. He took out Futaba's phone, scrolled down to Miss Shimizu's number. Then he deleted it. He'd given her his old number. As he made his way back to the train station, body numb, feet scraping the pavement, he imagined it. Her dialing to reach out to him, and being greeted with an empty hiss that could never answer. "I'm on my way back now, currently on the train. You took a while. Found anything useful?" "Not much, I'm afraid. We can quite definitely rule out parental abuse or domestic strife as a source of distortion. His mother is deeply distressed at his condition. The apartment was unremarkable. His bedroom likewise. However, I was able to obtain the contents of his hard drive. Bingo! Let me at that sucker. I'll take every secret he's ever had and turn it inside out." "It sounds like Futaba and Goro have things well in hand from here. I think I'll go home. I didn't get much sleep last night, I'm sorry to say." "Join the club. And I ain't going nowhere till I get my hoodie back. It is literally cold as balls outside." "I'm gonna head back too. Yusuke, can we keep talking later?" "Certainly. It's an interesting plan." "What plan?" "Secret." The three of them were chatting downstairs for a while. They wouldn't say what it's about. "You'll know when the time is right." "No point in bringing it up now anyway. It'll just be distracting until we get a better idea of the last keyword." "There's something else I have to say. My cover was blown. Shimizu's mother saw through me. I suppose I'm out of practice. I evaded the most unsavory details and swore her to secrecy, but at this point I believe that I'm a liability to the investigation. Should my presence be uncovered by the authorities and linked to LeBlanc, it will be an unacceptable hindrance to our goal. I've gathered all the intel I can and you have access to the metanav. It would be prudent to turn myself in now and let you handle things from here." "Yeah, no." "Seconded. Thirded." "Yo, Akechi, Morgana's reading over my shoulder and he wants me to pass along a message real quick. You're an idiot." Harsh but fair. I mean, personally, I'm kinda two ways about the whole thing. On one hand, you're a huge dick who definitely needs to go to jail, but on the other hand, F the police. Mama Sakamoto didn't raise no snitch. Snitch. Yeah, pretty much. You said you're gonna turn yourself in anyway, so I don't give a shit if the cops come snooping around. There is also the small matter of your contributions in the Dead Sea. Makoto would likely have perished without your aid. It would be exceedingly callous of us to simply discard you at any juncture prior to the completion of our task. And even then, our relationship has ceased to be one of quid pro quo. We have committed to doing this together. That commitment will endure, regardless of circumstances. I'm gonna look that up. Mr. Sakura said he already said he'd cover for you too if anyone came around for any reason. We're in it to win it, understand? Goro, you there? He's underground. He's underground. Signal's probably wonky. I'm here. Sorry, but this is my stop. I'll see you all shortly. Goro Akechi is now offline. Futaba Sakura has messaged you. So, FYI, I'm still tracking that phone, remember? You're still on the train, and the train is nowhere near Yongenjaya. Feeling bashful, little birdie? Don't worry, I won't tell the others. Just remember, I know all and see all. Eyes of the sun, shine bright like the sun of Vulcanus! And cease.